So a lot of the drive-through stuff that we do, I mean, the reason that it works is because of the hospitality professional platform that we started with. I mean, you can't do anything without the people. The building doesn't turn its own lights on, and drive-through doesn't work without the people. So what you won't hear me talk a lot about is leadership, because I think we talk a lot about leadership in this company, and what we don't talk about is followship. Because I don't care how good of a leader you are, if you don't have people following you doing the work, you're not going to get anything done. I think we've outgrown the business model that we're an entry-level employer, and that's the assumption that we need to hire unskilled fast food amateurs, right, to do the work. And we pay market rate for them. And market rate is simply the cheapest amount we can pay to adequately staff our restaurants. Let's just call it what it is, market rate. So when we came here, I wanted to do it different. We had this notion of, what if I were able to staff the place with professionals? What would that look like? What would it look like if we paid a living wage and ended turnover, right? And just kind of stop that leaking of culture, because that's what turnover does. It just leaks your culture out. It leaks the knowledge out. I needed cooks, I needed cashiers, and I could do the truck, and I could do the payroll, and I could do all of that stuff, the schedule, but I needed workers that I could depend on. And then from them, we could build the leaders, and which is what we did, which made face-to-face possible. It made, recipe for service possible. It made cash cart, outdoor expediting. I mean, just on and on and on. The different things that we've been able to do over the years it was a foundation that made all those things possible, because, we weren't going through a lot of the turnover issues that we would have faced if we had a bunch of entry-level employees, right? So in a good quarter, we might hire 2 to 3 people in a quarter. And I talked to an operator the other day that it's in their business plan to hire 10 people a month. So they're going to go through 30 people in a quarter. We'll go through 3. At the end of the year, those 3 are still going to be with me. And those 30 that the other guy hired, he's going to go through another generation or 2 of them before the year's up. When we're recruiting, our recruiting tool is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that says cashiers $13 an hour. That's our starting rate. And so we don't use Snagajob, we don't use any thirdparty.com to help us recruit and find people. We just use a little sheet of paper, help wanted sign essentially, with the advertised rate of pay. And that's part-time, full-time, nighttime, daytime, that's everybody. That's the rate of pay. And it's not all internal referencing. I mean, some of that happens. You tap out of that pretty quickly, The people that apply they're our customers, because the kind of person that we're looking for a professional. In other words, someone who's looking for a profession. So you've got like your journeyman electrician, or your apprentice plumber, a framer, roofer, or data processor, paralegal, dental assistant, the lady that works at the Hilton at the hospitality desk. These are the type of people that are in professions, but you put them in a fast food environment, we don't consider that a profession because the pay's not there. When the pay is there, you can call it a profession, therefore hospitality professionals, that's what we're looking for. And so when they see that they can make $13 here, just like the $12 they're making as a paralegal, and that kind of thing, then you're attracting a different crowd. And then when they walk in the door, they see that rate of pay, and they see who's working behind the counter, and that it's representative of them, then that is a tractor beam for them. That's why that 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper's worked. And it's worked for 17 years, because we've been able to attract those people. I don't speak at youth groups or junior achievement. I don't go to the mommy drop-off and try to convince them to come work for me. It's just that sheet of paper advertised to our customers that already eat here. So the average age during the day is 35 that work here, and the average age at night is 30. We were able to enforce our policies. We had good policies. I think every Chick-fil-A operator I've talked to has good policies, but it's the enforcement of those policies is a very different story, because a lot of times you enforce policy, it's a self-inflicted wound, because you don't want to be any more shorthanded than you already are. That leader that you have working for you is the real policy enforcer. The name tag, you park in the right spot, keep your phone in your pocket, all those issues, right? They don't enforce those policies because they're going to now have to run an even shorter shift than what they had before, you know? And so they'll allow some of these things to happen just so they can adequately staff the restaurant, right? Even though they might be struggling through, because if they enforce those policies, now that person's gone, there's really not a stream of other people qualified coming through in the numbers that you need to make that happen. When we're paying a professional rate of pay, that changes that story. It absolutely changes that. So now you do have a large pool of applicants that are coming in to upgrade, maybe is the word you would use, to make sure that the standard is held. And so you become less tolerant of those that aren't going to help contribute to a professional environment. Those subtractors, they got to go pretty quickly, because even those that are very good at the hospitality part, but they're not good at the pace part, because we need both. You can't just be the nice, warm, friendly person that's really slow. You're not going to make it. You know, you need to be able to do both. What we said in the beginning, it all starts, I think, at that. You got to have followers. You know, we talk about leadership in this company a lot, and which is great, and there's a place for it, but we're not talking about fellowship. We're not talking about the well-trained, well-paid, well-disciplined army that we need to do this job. We don't have an impressive org chart to talk about. What we have is organizational chemistry. You know, where they work really well together, personalities work well together. We try to have an organization where the janitor can tell the CEO, here's what we ought to be doing, and the CEO needs to listen. And everybody's job title here is, I'll grab a broom and do it. You know, so there's no non-working managers other than me. They don't want me to work. I get in the way. Because one of the cool things is when you settle that fellowship piece, and you don't have this turnover and all this decay that you'd have with your culture, they're able to manage hospitality and not manage the team. So they probably spend 5% of the time on drama and trauma, and 95% of the time actually working on the business. And I think that's where, you know, we talk about leadership a lot in the company. That's, I think, when they have the base, the army to work with, then they can do all the things we talk about with leadership. But if we don't have that, they're always dealing with, see, we don't even do training anymore in this company. We do onboarding. We had to change the name because we do so much of it. You know, when you're hiring 2 people a quarter, you're not doing a lot of training. You're not doing a lot of recruiting. You don't need a lot of .com help to come help find people. You're not dealing with those issues. You know, there's other issues that you can deal with. You can innovate. You can grow your business. You know, because essentially, if you've got 70 people on your team, you hire 7 people, that's 10% of your crew that's completely new and different, and that can shift your culture. It can absolutely begin some decay if it's not done perfectly and well. Well, we all know none of that ever happens perfectly and well. It's always disruptive and messy. Well, if you're doing that on a monthly basis, can you imagine how many people you're going through and how much culture? It's impossible to keep that culture in place. It really is. It's always shifting. It's always dynamic. And all the knowledge you throw into them is just kind of leaking out the back. You know, because of the way we're doing this. It's the way we've always done it, you know. So that's why, like I said, 17 years ago, we decided to pivot and do it differently. Because we do have 20 plus year operators that are working more now than they were 20 years ago. So obviously, you know, when the message is there's a war for talent and talent is won, there's no answer. We're just getting more of the same. It's the echo chamber. We're not getting new messages. And that's why I've been provocative with this message this year, because I think it would be helpful to some of us, maybe not everybody, but it's a answer, it's not the answer. The intent for us was to find the living wage, and so I think you can go too low, and it's not a living wage, so you're not attracting that professional. It's not going to be a profession. They're not going to be able to pay a mortgage with that, because a dual income at this rate of pay, you can do pretty well, right? So they're going to do the mortgage, raise the kids, and these are breadwinners. These are family breadwinners, and you'll see that. That's why the average age is about where it is. But if I were at 11, I wasn't at that cost of living rate. I still think you're just paying a premium for fast food amateurs. I don't think you've stepped in quite high enough. And I think that's the cautionary tale, is you can go too low. So, you ask an operator, do you have the store that you envisioned when you were interviewing? you know. And if they say no, then you ask number one reasons why. I don't have the people. We can fix that. We can fix that. Let's stop hiring the entry-level employee and start hiring someone who's serious about doing this job, professionals. If they can't stand there and be charming and hospitable and make eye contact and smile and all that the moment they get there the first day, I've hired the wrong person. They might not know how to punch the buttons, and I might have to say it's my pleasure, not your welcome. But the rest of it, they're bringing day one. The core four is not something you teach. They know it. They better know it, or they don't keep the job. So they're going to walk in with core four. I'm going to teach them to do it a little faster, you know. But that's who we're hiring. That's who we want to attract. So the output is going to be different. So you can't think that, okay, well, I'm going to pay this much for the team that's in front of me. It's a different team. It's a different demography, and the output will be different. So if you mow 12 acres with a push mower versus mow 12 acres with a riding mower, the output's completely different, but you spent more on the machine. But I can mow another 12 acres before you're ever done with that push mower. You know, you're just going to get a lot more out of them eventually if you're doing it right, if you're applying all the leadership that we already know how to apply. But now we have a stable team in which to use and develop. And guess what? They're not going anywhere. They get really good at what they do. We don't suffer from burnout in this company. I'm talking about our leaders, our direct reports. They suffer from brownout. And brownout is more sinister than burnout. Brownout is they're performing about 60% of their potential because they're always dealing with Johnny who didn't show up on time. I got this beautiful position sheet. We're going to go for the goals that the operator lined out for us that we agreed on in the meeting yesterday or whatever, and then 3 people don't show up. And they called in, and you know, all this little drama and trauma that they're having to manage. And so now that leader's like, you know, this is just what I deal with every day. You know, their quality of life goes way down. And they're not producing like they once were, or maybe they're not the potential that you thought they were. But what are we giving them to work with? You guys are restaurant people. I know you know how to get out of the way. Don't do what Scott Brickhouse did. Scott, so what does this red button do? And then the roller coaster came to a stop. I think he knew exactly what he was doing.
Hey, Jojo, yeah, I know your name. Thought I saw you jump a Utah train.